Welcome, everyone, to Stan Morris Field in Wayne, Nebraska. It's time for National STOL at the Wayne America Fly-In. It's the National STOL Circuit's first ever appearance here. All told, 42 STOL pilots from all over the country have flown here for the rare opportunity to fly in both of the leading STOL competitions, that's STOL Drag and National STOL. Want to take a look at your sectional today? It's KLCG, that's Lima, Charlie, Golf. We're competing today on runway 13. It's 2,070 feet of dusty turf in good condition. That's 120 feet wide. Weather this weekend looks good but challenging with gusty crosswinds in the forecast. An incredibly stacked field this weekend, particularly in the touring and sport classes. And there's lots of STOL legends here this weekend. Steve Henry, Hal Stockman, Warren Grobelar, Jeff Cole, Austin Clements, Jaden Newman, Kyle Bushman, and more. They're all here. Keep an eye on Dan Reynolds, fresh off his impressive numbers at Valdez. And also, watch for hometown favorite Colin Kaniva to put in some real work. He knows the fields and sandbars around here, but will it help him on the turf? We're just about cleared for takeoff. The pattern is clear. The line is painted. Let's kick this thing off. That's right, everybody. It is time to get pumped, get excited for the finals here at Wayne America Fly-In for National STOL. I'm looking at the beautiful crowd braving the winds right now. They're all ready to go. Everybody wave. We can see you. For the viewers at home, wave to the cameras. That's right. We're ready for some awesome STOL action. If you didn't know, my name is Ryan Dombrowski. You can find me all over the internet as Super Arrow. On runway 13 right now, we've got a 10 to 14 knot crosswind for the competitors today. So if you think about, if you're a pilot of general aviation, maybe you're not one of the world's greatest STOL pilots, but you're just a general aviation pilot, that is right up against the crosswind limit demonstrated on some of the aircraft you might fly. So it's going to be sporty. It's going to be interesting. And honestly, yesterday, during the qualifier and during practice, we saw wind variability playing a big role in making sure what the scores would be for people. So sometimes competitors would come in and the wind would drop out and they'd have a poor score. We had a couple of classes where we had scratch after scratch after scratch. So the wind definitely going to be a factor today. Let's talk briefly about what you're seeing. So this is National STOL. And if you've never been here before, if this is your first time watching National STOL, give a hoot and a holler in the crowd. Or if you're at home, I want to see it in the chat and on YouTube and Facebook. We want to know if this is your first time. I'm going to give a real brief run-up while our competitors do a run-up about what this is. So basically, it's your spot landing competition at your home airport turned up to 11. Competitors are going to taxi up to that big white line right in front of them. Right now, you see Brandon Korn in the mighty Cessna 205 waiting to launch. He'll taxi up to a white line and get the go-ahead from our line judge, Lexi, and the air bosses. And once they do, the pilots take off, they yank back on the yoke or the stick, and they get off into the air as shortly and as safely as possible. We measure that distance. Where did their main wheels leave the ground? They'll make a traffic pattern. I mentioned the air bosses. We have air bosses watching the whole operation, making sure that spacing is correct, speeds are correct, everyone's being safe. They'll come in on final approach and try to land as close to that line without landing before it. If they land before the line, it's a scratch and they don't get any points for that landing. Assuming they land after the line, they'll get heavy on the brakes. And as soon as they're stopped, we measure the distance from the line to where the main wheels are. We'll explain a little bit more about that later because it's different depending on different airplanes, but they'll measure where the main wheels are, add those two scores together, and that's your composite score for the round. Then it's just like airplane golf. We want to be the lowest number possible. And we saw some really low numbers yesterday, particularly in the unlimited class and in the sport classes, which you're going to see later today for those finals. It gets tight. It gets short. So that's the quick run up on how it works. I should trademark that. The run up, airplanes, get it? Dad jokes. Corey, how's it going back there in Wayne?
Oh, the energy is definitely building. The conditions have increased in the challenge factor for sure today. So with that said, what I expect to see today is a little bit shorter takeoffs and landings, but we're also going to see the pilots working harder today. I want to watch Dan Reynolds. We're going to pay attention to his elevator control surface. That's his primary control that's going to help him control where he comes in for a landing. We're going to be watching those control surfaces today to kind of get a gauge on how hard these guys are working in those cockpits. Brandon Korn being one of the coolest aircraft and pilots here today. I'm really excited to see that Cessna 205 and these heavies start and kick off the show today, Ryan.
That's right. It's going to be really crazy. Part of that crazy winds, too, is going to be you're going to see wing walkers. We don't see that very often in National STOL, but pilots have the ability, particularly with the lighter aircraft, maybe not these touring aircraft that are firing up right now, they can actually request wing walkers to help them make that turn around in onto the runway when they're on the ground to make sure that they don't get a wind under a wing or anything like that. Want to actually throw to a quick video package about practice. During practice 2 days ago, Thursday, people were kind of getting the feel of the field and the weather, and we had some rain and some storms coming in. So let's take a look at what practice was on Thursday. Let's check out Thursday's practice here for National STOL at the Wayne America Fly-In. It's the largest gathering of pilots yet this year, with 42 registered pilots cutting up the course as practice began. We've got Brandon Korn in that beautiful 205 putting in work, Jeff Abrams and Piper Zilla, that Cherokee 140, and Kathy Page in her new Carbon Cub getting things underway. High winds and scattered showers kept the team on their toes as the unpredictable Midwest winds whipped through, pilots having the opportunity to get up to 3 takeoffs and landings in those switchy and gusty conditions. You can see the suspension and tire changes working their magic to defy gravity. Even some of the most experienced pilots showing some signs of struggle. There's Steve Henry's newest Yeehaw 8, sporting a new motor and knobby tires, bringing in some impressively low numbers. And Brian Steck in his Legend Cub, finishing that practice segment in style.
Nice job, boy. Yeah, taxi in. We'll see you tomorrow, guys.
So yeah, the conditions were definitely sporty during practice, and they were sporty yesterday during qualifying as well. Qualifying really exciting. As you heard in that little video package, 42 pilots yesterday trying to qualify, and the top 5 to 6, depending on the class, moved on to today. For the touring class, these are the heavies. Let's look at who made it through. Brandon Korn yesterday in that Cessna 205, really putting down distances that I don't think anyone expected of an airplane that heavy. Brandon Korn's up front. He's from Hearn, Texas in that Cessna 205. Jeff Abrams will be behind him in a Piper Cherokee from Ocala, Florida. Tim Knutson from Chautauqua, Wisconsin. I'm rooting for him as I'm a Wisconsinite in that 1965 Cessna 150. So very different than the other 2 airplanes. Ty Burlingham, Cessna 180. Kurt Leaders, Cessna 185. And Warren Grobelar, the one, the only, Cessna 180 from Naples, Florida. So you got the 180s at the back of the pack, and we've got the other airplanes at the front. So going to be a really interesting lineup to see. Again, we've got a lot of wind. If people are going to be less affected by the wind, Corey, it's these pilots in this class.
You know, you're absolutely right, Ryan. And I'm just looking here at this lineup, trying to find the standouts, and I can't find one. They are all standouts. We've got all of these guys deserve their place here in the finals, and These conditions, like you said, are going to be challenging, especially for the lighter aircraft. These heavier aircraft might have a little bit better time. So for them, we're going to see shorter takeoff distances, shorter landing distances. But conversely, we might see more scratches because the difficulty level is increased today. But we have the world's best pilots today, and it is all literally on that line today for them.
The big thing, and I'm wondering if you can explain this a little bit more for folks at home, for people maybe are new to aviation, right? When we talk about a crosswind, right, we've got I think we all kind of understand what that is, right, in terms of a wind blowing across the runway. But why is that challenging for a pilot, and particularly for someone doing STOL operations?
Well, it's kind of like you're a weatherman standing out in a hurricane, but it's just not as intense. But have you ever ridden your bike in the wind and you kind of feel like it's pushing you over, or you're walking down the street and it gets windy and it pushes you around? Well, imagine you have 30 feet of wing surface. So that 30 feet of wing surface, or that large surface, is going to really be subjected to the wind. These things are a part of that moving air mass, and as that moving air mass jostles around and swirls around, these aircraft are cutting through that and having to deal with that complexity. So I don't know Ryan, I don't know a really good way to explain it for beginners other than, when you feel wind hitting you on your body and it pushes you, it's the very same thing in an airplane, but multiply it by factors, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing is that gusting, right? Having that variability in the wind. If you think about when you're flying in an airliner on your way home maybe you're flying home tonight or tomorrow from Wayne, and you feel the bottom maybe drop out a little bit when you're landing an airliner. That could be because the wind changed. There's a little bit less airflow over the wings, less lift, and
Yep.
You're having to adjust. Now, when we're getting really precise like this, talking about literally people's scores, people making it to the finals based on 6 inches before or after that line, right? That line isn't super wide, super thick, and so that's definitely something that can really affect people. We saw that actually during the touring class yesterday. I'm actually looking through the scores, and I'm seeing from yesterday, and I'm seeing DQ, DQ, DQ all over the place because people were scratching so much. Let's just to set the stage a little bit. Yesterday, coming into today's finals in the touring class, Brandon Korn was currently in first place, 260 feet. 18 feet behind him was Kurt Leaders in the Cessna 185. Warren Grobelar, third place, 289. And Ty Burlingham, 340. Tim Knutson in that 150, really cranking a lot of performance out of a little 150 with 347 feet combined. And Jeff Abrams at the back of the qualifying pack with 481. So super, super tight between all of those various scores, particularly the top 3.
Absolutely, Ryan. And these guys are going to have their work cut out for them today, no matter what aircraft they're in. But the nice thing about the weather today is it's cool, it's nice. They actually have me sitting in a trailer, and they were going to close the door, but I actually want to feel the wind gusts so that I can report on that, because I'm sitting about 50 feet away from the starting line. So as the wind hits me, it's going to take about a few seconds to hit those pilots. And if I've got an airplane on the line there, I'm going to be able to tell you whether or not that airplane is experiencing a gust or what's going on with it. But, as we move forward here, looking at Brandon Korn and Jeff Abrams and that big spread there, I got to tell you about those scores yesterday. They're gone. We are starting completely over today, so it's really anybody's competition.
It's anyone's competition, and it's going to be just a fantastic day there in Wayne. Before we get started, I wanted to just remind everybody, and Corey, you've been so good about reminding people about this on site, is if you're in the crowd, that sun's pretty bright today, so get some sunscreen on, get some water. The other thing you can do is we hold for a few minutes before we launch the touring class. Be sure to go check out the National STOL merch table. We got a lot of cool things that you can bring home as a souvenir from your adventure here to the Wayne America Flying, including some cool gaiters, some face gaiters, face masks for that dusty wind, that blowing wind if you need some protection there. Also checking out on social right now, Piperzilla's #1 fan says, Piperzilla, we love you. Piperzilla's the
I
second
love
plane on your
seeing that.
screen right now.
Yeah, I love seeing the fans online and in person, Ryan. We've got, something unique about our competition today, going back to what Ryan was alluding to earlier. In this heavy class, we're not going to see the wing walkers. And I'm not talking about wing walkers that get on top of the biplanes and do aerobatic routines while they're standing on top of the airplane. These are wing walkers that are holding onto the wing tips to prevent these airplanes from flying away as they taxi, especially when they're turning around, because these aircraft have a tendency to weather vane in this wind. We've got right now a really big gust going through, and this is going to be a challenging day, but the skies are blue. I see nothing but smiles on people's faces. I did have an opportunity to talk to a lot of the pilots yesterday around the campfire, and I was asking, why was everybody scratching so much during the competition today? Was it that you were pushing hard? And it was time and time again, it was the conditions that were the most talked about around the campfire. These pilots are talking to each other. I was witnessing a conversation between two of our top competitors today, and they were giving each other's pointers on how they were going to handle the wind and how they were going to keep each other safe in the pattern. And so there is a lot going on. It just is an increase in the complexity factor, and so the atmosphere is charged, and here comes Brandon Korn rounding that corner and making his way to that start line. So excited. We got about 3 more minutes or so before we begin. One moment.
Well, here, Brandon Korn, we can talk a little bit about him because he's very exciting. From Texas, from Hearne, Texas. He's a 3rd-generation owner of Korn Collision Center. I think that might have something to do with why that aircraft is so shiny. Running an MT prop from McFarland Aviation on that aircraft, sponsored by McFarland Aviation. So that's great to see. One of our series sponsors has a passion not only for aviation, but he also races wing sprint cars, which is really exciting. So you see him racing maybe, and then also doing some camping and some backcountry flying. So that's Brandon Korn, who's going to be up front. Behind him in Piperzilla, the beast from the southeast, is Jeff Abrams in that 1965 Piper Cherokee. He is one to watch for his landings. Okay, so Jeff Abrams flown for 3 different airlines. One of his careers for UPS. He flew for 25 years as a pro pilot, and you can really see it in his landings. He really knows how to butter that bread and get it on the ground there. Tom Knutson from Chautauqua, Wisconsin. His family, also an aviation family. His mom and his sister Heidi, they own a Cub. He's got a 150, 172, and even a Stearman in the family. So they are flying lots of stuff. He's even got a daughter who's 21 years old who's got commercial, multi, and instrument ratings. So that's really great to see as well. So that's the first heat of this touring class. That's the Alpha heat, and then Bravo heat coming up soon will be the 180s and the 185s. We'll talk about them in just a second.
Yeah, Ryan, this is a really exciting lineup. And as you talk about the backgrounds of some of these pilots, we all got our start somewhere, right? And so what I want to do right now is I want to get a shout out to Anthony Pumphrey in Southern California. He flies out of the Flaybob Airport, and he just achieved his commercial rating and his CFI. And so he is crushing it, just getting started in his aviation journey. Anthony, congratulations, my friend. I hope you're watching live and you're having a great day. Get out there and teach some people how to fly.
Dude, that is amazing. Yeah, and if anyone else has some, we'd love to see it in the chat. If you've had a recent aviation win, we want to learn about that and celebrate you. This is something that you can do. These aircraft in this class, particularly the 150 you're going to see take off in just a minute, these are airplanes that you can learn to fly in. And with that, we are off, and Brandon Korn off so short. So short there for Brandon Korn to just drop the gauntlet right at the start.
Absolutely. What an impressive way to start the competition. And I am actually lucky to be joined here live with Colin Kaniva as he prepares his show for the day and his competition. And so he'll be helping us commentate some of these takeoffs and landings in this first round. There's Piperzilla getting off the ground.
And now Tim Knutson in that 150. You were making fun of me yesterday, Corey, because I've actually never flown in a Cessna 150. I don't know if that's a badge of honor or a badge of sorrow.
You know, it's always an opportunity. That's how I see it. What you're looking at here is an airplane that you can still fly. This is a staple of American general aviation is what we're looking at here. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of pilots have learned in the Cessna 150.
All at one time or another in our career flying. Ryan, you also haven't flown in a Legend MOAC Cub, so we're going to fix that this weekend too.
I don't know if I can't hear Colin. I think he's talking to me. Something about a Legend MOAC. That's right. I have never flown in a Legend MOAC, but we can change that. I would love take me up, Coach.
We will fix that today, or not today, or sometime this weekend. I was going to say a lot of flying today.
Yeah, you got a lot of flying to do. Colin, talk to us a little bit about what your experience yesterday was in the qualifying. You actually were qualifying in two different classes in two different aircraft. What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was great. You know, the winds were good. The crowd was alive. I have a feeling this crowd today is going to really be on their feet. But man, anytime you can fly a plane is a good day. And so getting to fly two of them, that was one of the best days. But I have a feeling this wind today is going to keep us afloat for quite a while.
Absolutely. And there's Brandon Korn's first landing. Ballooned a little bit, went quite a bit long, carried too much energy on that one. I don't think he's going to be very happy with that one, especially contrasting it to the precision we saw yesterday. And so, Ryan, what we may be seeing is how challenging these conditions are. I'm really interested to see how Jeff Abrams performs in Piperzilla as he makes his way to the line here on short final.
You know, one thing I'd like to tell the crowd while we are watching these planes come in, today we do have concessions right over here. There's some water, some cold adult beverages. I think there's some sodas. Go over there and see my good friend Andrea and my friend Scott. They'll get you hydrated up real good.
Piperzilla puts in a respectable landing there. You know, we're looking at Brandon Korn's score come in at 211 feet, which is really magnificent for any 205, but not necessarily the best performance for Brandon in his 205. And Jeff Abrams coming in with a 224-foot landing, really close to Brandon's score in Piperzilla, as we watch Tim Knutson make his way to the line in his Cessna 150.
See him fighting that crosswind a little bit there, but he's got under control. They look good to me. Love seeing the dust kick up off the mains.
Lock him up and get him stopped.
So here's what's interesting, you know, from that first round is that we have, to your point, let's see where Tim came in with the landing score. We had really pretty close landings. Actually, Tim with the shortest landing, which would make sense. He's got the lightest airplane of the bunch with 141. And so right now, Brandon Korn not too far off. He's got some room to shrink to hit yesterday's type of numbers. He's at 298. After that first run, Tim Knutson in second place with 354, and Jeff Abrams with 492 combined.
Now, those numbers might look high to some of you when comparing to some of the other aircraft in the competition, but keep in mind, these are the heavies. This is the touring class. You're looking at a Cessna 205, ladies and gentlemen, competing in a STOL competition. You're looking at a Piper Cherokee, a Cessna 150. This is as good as it gets. This is so exciting for me to see these standard category or, general aviation staples that you see at any common airport, and this is your invitation to bring what you got. And that's what Brandon, Jeff, and Tim are showing you here this morning.
Brandon Korn's going to have to go out and replace his divots after that one. He really drug the tail real hard on that one.
Yeah, he really did. And as I was feeling the wind on my back, it kind of fell out on his takeoff, it felt like. So we'll see. Now we have a really good gust here for Piper Zilla if he can get the go-ahead. His last takeoff rolling in at about 268 feet. Let's see if he can improve on that one. Well, you can probably hear in the background just everything is flapping. The wind is picking up even more furiously right now. Yesterday about this same time, we were seeing about an average of about 6 knots gusting to 25. Today, we're averaging, somewhere between 10 to 15 knots gusting to 35. So it's just a little bit more complex today.
A little bit more complex, and you can watch, that 150, Tim's, nursing it into the air as quickly as possible, and then he's got to just ease it out of ground effect and into more classic, like, cruise flight for around the pattern. You were talking about the weights, Corey. You were talking about the weight of these airplanes and how they're the heavies. And the 150 is not necessarily heavy, but its power to weight ratio is probably maybe a little bit similar. I don't know. The max takeoff weight of a 205 is around 3,500 pounds. And I doubt that Brandon's got it loaded up today, but you're talking about something with an empty weight over 2,000 pounds.
Yeah, I think he's probably somewhere closer to his empty weight plus fuel and oil, things like that, and the pilot in there. But, these guys are flying certified airplanes. And so these are the airplanes that you see at every airport across our beautiful country. Here comes Brandon Korn against the beautiful blue Nebraska sky today. You can see his wingtips rocking back and forth. Let's pay attention to his control surfaces so we can see how hard he's working. We really pay critical attention to that elevator. That was a much better landing for Brandon. I think he might be happy with that one.
And you said watch the elevator there. As we watch the replay on the stream here, I mean, it is full back, the whole rollout, just trying to get some aerodynamic braking, I'd assume.
Yeah, so he improved on his first landing by over 50 feet, coming in at 150-foot landing. That is a fantastic score for a Cessna 205. I just can't help, when I say 150-foot landing, I have to let out a little chuckle because this is an airplane that holds a significant amount of cargo and people. It's amazing. And Piper Zilla coming in. That looks like a good one for him as well, locking up those brakes.
Love seeing that nose strut just compress under the weight of the braking, the forces of the braking as he comes in. Interesting to see, by the way, you were talking about Brandon Korn's scores. He did improve that landing pretty aggressively, but I think you were right about the wind dropping out on him on the takeoff, because the takeoff was over 100 feet longer for Brandon that time. So first run for him, still his best. And actually, first run for Jeff Abrams, still his best.
As we watch Tim come in on his final in that beautiful Cessna 150, you can see the crab angle. He's kind of turned a little bit to the right because that wind is coming from slight right. Now let's pay attention to his rudder and his elevator. Watch that tail as he massages this airplane right down to the line. That
Making a
was
little divot with the tail that time.
Yeah, absolutely, Ryan. I was about to say the exact same thing. Cutting a little grass with his little tail tie down ring. Watch here on the replay. Pretty fun. he mowed a little trench.
Love it. By the way, because I think the tail may have touched down before the line, the tail or the tail wheel, parts of the aircraft, I guess, can touch down before the line. We're really only concerned with the main wheels. So for Tim's plane, and actually for all of these planes, these nose gear aircraft, or nose draggers, as sometimes they're derogatorily called by superior tail dragger pilots. The main wheels are the ones on the back, the pair in the back. When we switch over to the next heat and you see the tail dragger versions of these airplanes, you'll see those two wheels up in front and a tail wheel in the back. So we measure from the main wheels always. So it's just a different measuring point depending on the configuration of the aircraft. And you can see why when you see how they land, right? Typically those wheels are the ones that are bearing the weight of the load of the airplane.
Absolutely. You're right, you are, Ryan. Here we go. This is their final. Are we going to do 4 rounds or 3 rounds today, Ryan? I see 4 rounds on the scorecard. That's awesome. Okay, here comes Piper Zill up to the line. That was a much better takeoff, it seemed like, for Brandon on that 205. Seems like he got off at right about 107 feet. That's a fantastic performance, closer to his first one at 87. So if he can put together a good landing, that could catapult his score quite a bit lower.
And Brandon, of course, trying to protect himself from the more classic, what we think of classically as bush planes. I just heard back from race control, Corey. We are going to do just 3 rounds today.
Okay, great.
Per heat.
Now, I did notice Tim had a long run with his tail dragging in the grass. I have to think that running that ring, that tie-down ring in the grass, caused quite a bit of drag and cost him quite a distance there. We're going to probably see a long, 232 feet for Tim in the 150. Seems like he dragged that tail about 30 feet in the grass. That's got to be a little bit of a penalty in distance there.
Yeah, his best takeoff was 213, which was his first takeoff. As Brandon comes around base to final there, let's talk a little bit about our sponsors. I would love to chat about Ladd Gardner Aviation Insurance. Ladd Gardner Insurance has been a partner of National STOL since the beginning. They've got excellent customer service and coverage, and they have a great slogan, Ladd Gardner, Aviation Protected. And they've been protecting National STOL since the beginning, and we really appreciate that. We also need to talk about our friends over at Hartzell Propeller. And in reading this ad copy yesterday, I learned a new thing, that a Hartzell Propeller was actually developed partnership between Orville Wright and Robert Hartzell back in 1917. So that's really impressive. Thank you to Hartzell. Brandon, right on the line.
Perfect landing on the line there. Looks like a really good, pretty close to his last landing. That looks like he might improve his score. Ooh, a little bit longer, or a little bit shorter, actually, 144 feet. That brings him down quite a bit, down to 298 combined on his score. He'll be happy with that one. Here comes Piper Zilla and his last opportunity to increase his score. That's a good one.
He had a great one too, yeah. Heavy on the brakes. I mean, I don't ever think about a Piper Cherokee or I never did until I started announcing for National STOL. I never thought of a Cherokee as a bush capable or backcountry capable airplane. And I think, maybe it doesn't have the big tires, maybe it doesn't have the protection in that way, but from just a standard performance capability, ooh, just good on the line there as we look at the replay. Just a performance capability you don't think about, I think, when you think of a Cherokee, something that could get you into a shorter strip. And Jeff certainly shows us that that's possible. So now we've got it stacking up a little bit. Brandon Corn's best combined now, 251. Here's Tim. Ooh.
Ooh, I think the wind might have fallen out underneath him. He might have caught a pretty big gust, 500 or so yards out, that caused him to come back on the power. And that just really caused a big sink. He just lost his lift. You can see him pulling full elevator deflection there to try and recover. He needed a little bit more horsepower, a little bump in that to save him from that one. But looks like that last one is a DQ. Oh, well, no.
So that's interesting. Looking at the replay, it would have counted, but he didn't stop. And if you don't stop, we can't measure it. We've seen that over and over in Wayne, pilots who actually thought they scratched when they did not, and they ruined the run by running out to the end. The other thing that happens when you run out to the end is you're reducing your chances to place in the most consistent award, which is a different award that's calculated based on the variation between the scores that you have.
And we're going to have just a few
minutes. Oh, go ahead.
It's really interesting when you mention the most consistent award. I talked to the pilots last night, and I asked several of them, hey, is anybody going after that specifically? And only one pilot told me, yeah, that's the one that I want, and it was Justin Tisdale. So we're going to see him a little bit later. We're going to look for him on the Mr. Consistent Award as these tail draggers now line up for the next round. As we wait a few minutes, Ryan, why don't you introduce us to our next three competitors?
Yeah, so let's talk about who is up next. Let's get the lineup for the Bravo heat of the touring class. This is going to be really exciting to see. You probably have seen these gentlemen flying before. Up front, we have Ty Burlingham in that beautiful red and black Cessna 180 hotel model. All the way from Woodburn, Oregon. Professional pilot with experience in helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. He's flying his 180 Skywagon named the Red Wagon. I can see why he named it that. And it's got a big engine, big 470 P-Ponk engine, VGs, a STOL kit, the 3-bladed Macaulay propeller, 29-inch bush wheels. It is modded out for STOL, no question about that. Kurt Leaders behind him in the Cessna 185 Skywagon. So the next kind of development in that 180 product line with the 185. He's an aircraft mechanic. Total time 4,500 hours. That's Kurt Leaders in that white, maroon, and silver Skywagon from Clear Lake, Minnesota. And behind him, Warren Grobelar. You've seen him all over the STOL competitions the last few years in that beautiful polished aluminum and tennis ball green 180. He's sponsored by McFarland Aviation, Acme Aero from Naples, Florida, also known as Warren G. Kind of a funny story about Warren is his branding. He loved the branding of maybe you can tell a certain motorsport participant, and was like, hey, if I use this number and this these colors, then I have built-in merch. All my merch is ready to go because someone else is already making it. So that just shows his sense of humor, and it's been fun to watch him in that Skywagon all over the U.S. STOL and STOL drag comps. So that's Warren. Watch for him. He's had a ton of wins. First place at Central Florida Classic in 2020 and 2021. Swamp STOL 2021 and 22. Sodbusters. Lone Star STOL in 2022. Just really putting down some wins for Warren Grobelar. So he's one to watch for sure.
Absolutely. Definitely a crowd favorite is Ty. Throttles up. Let's see what he can do. Dumping those flaps. That is one loud airplane, but certainly a fun airplane to watch take off. The winds have been very, very variable the last 10, 15 seconds. We've seen some pretty good gusts come through as Kurt makes his way up to the line here. I'm going to be watching the winds. Little bit of a calm, and then here's a gust right here. That might help him out. See that right wing pickup? That's because that gust came from the right side, right when he was rotating. I apparently am using the word right a lot. Here's Warren Grobler coming up to the line. Crowd favorite. You know, one of my favorite airplanes on the tour as well because it's just so beautiful with that classic lines, the polished aluminum. Got to say that word like the Brits. That was a beautiful takeoff.
And I love
Holy
how
cow.
he puts that tail real high on takeoff. He's not afraid to get the prop a little close to the grass and then just taking that big bite as he pulls back on the yoke to get him into the air.
And one thing you just noticed about Warren is his rotation was absolutely perfect. As soon as his tail came close to the ground and he had that high angle of attack, the main wheels lifted off. Textbook perfect takeoff for Warren Grobler. And it shows in his distance. He had a 138-foot takeoff. But Ty Burlingham is ahead right now with a 132-foot takeoff. So it's a grudge match right now between those two, and Kurt Leder's just behind with 170 feet. So now it's all about the landing on this first round.
And the number to beat for first place right now is Brandon Korn in that gigantic 205 with 251 feet. So let's see what happens here as Ty comes in on short final.
Oh, I just am sensing a little bit of extra energy there for Ty's landing. I wonder if he's playing it a little conservative just to put a score on the board on this first landing. But that was it was a very respectable landing as well.
Yeah, 192 feet for Ty there. So that'll put him up into second place so far. And these 180s and this second half of the touring class yesterday just scratched over and over and over again. And so I'm sure you're right about just trying to keep it on the board. Oh, was that a scratch? It was close. It was short.
Goodness.
Oh, I hope
Such
it counts.
a short landing too, but yep, we are getting a scratch from the officials. Unfortunately, that ridiculously short and awesome landing will be thrown out because he touched the line.
Oof, that's going to be...
That's a
heartbreak.
heartbreaker. That really is, Ryan. And here comes Warren Grobler against the beautiful Nebraska sky. Look at him. He just looks like he's hanging out there like a helicopter, propeller blowing in the breeze. Looks like Dan Reynolds out there, but he's in a 180. He must have some good winds out there.
Watching some interviews with him, and he said by this point in the approach, it's all feel for him. It's just all feel.
That's a good landing right there for Warren. Fantastic score, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 125, 130 feet, I would guesstimate. That might be enough for him to move up in the rankings.
Could not, another one of those landings that could not have been any closer to the line for Warren there. Maybe a foot or two, but he was very accurate there.
Yeah, and that's one thing you'll see about Warren is he is super consistent. He does put in the time to practice and hit that line. And, you know, one of the cool things about Warren's aircraft, if you, as he taxis by here, I want to make sure that he's got it on there. If you look at Warren's landing gear, I don't know if the camera people can showcase that, but he's actually got some really high-tech landing gear on that Cessna 180 provided to him by Acme Aero, one of his sponsors. This is a company that's putting these modern shock systems on these aircraft and bringing them into this century, an amazing feat. And you can see that on his landings where he just plants that airplane on the ground. He can get on the brakes, and that spring gear on the other two aircraft, you can see them. They're not able to get on the brakes as much, and so the shock systems and the innovations in STOL are definitely a part of the package here, and need to be a part of the conversation. Because I did notice as Warren got on the brakes, he was able to brake a little bit more aggressively, where I noticed that Ty had his wheels completely stopped. He did not have the surface friction that he needed, and I think that was because of that spring steel landing gear he had.
Here's Warren at the line now. Listen to that MT prop just bite into the air as he takes off. Nice short one, and I just love, like, to your point, I love the gleam. The shiny, the gleaminess of his airplane. It's just like so, it's like ka-chow. It's like so beautiful.
Absolutely. He is very shiny.
While they are looping around, I want to take a minute to thank another one of our sponsors. You're going to see them a lot later today. The Legend Aircraft folks, they have been with us for a long time. Legend Aircraft, the MOAC. You see, Colin was kind of ribbing me about having never ridden in a MOAC when he was briefly on the stream here. It's the mother of all Cubs, and they say Legend Aircraft, not your grandfather's Cub. That is right. You're going to see that later. Airplanes that are just totally kitted out for STOL. It's the classic Cub approach turned up to a million. So love them and love their support. So thank you to Legend Aircraft for sure. Now, here comes Ty. A little bit of a balloon.
Yeah, I think that's going to cost him a little bit of distance there, but yet still a really good performance for Ty in that that is a beautiful airplane. I just, now ever since you mentioned glints or the glint of the light, it was almost blinding.
I see, glint was the right word, and I was saying gleam, and everyone was like, what is he talking about? I don't know. Here's Kurt Leaders now. Coming in a little bit higher.
Yeah, he's got that high alpha already. You can see the nice tail, low attitude. He's crabbing into the wind. He might be cheating a little bit to the left side of the runway to give him a little bit better run out, a little more controllability. Oh, he just fell out from underneath him there. As you saw that left wheel touch before the line, and that is going to be a scratch for Kurt Leaders.
That's 2 in a row scratches for Kurt Leaders.
Yeah, Kurt's having a challenging day in these conditions for sure. And as we turn our eyes back left to the approach, as we watch Kurt's on the replay, yeah, that's just a heartbreaking scratch because he had a very good approach set up for himself. But here comes Warren Groblar coming in nice and slow. You can see he's coming in quite a bit slower than the previous two competitors. I think Warren is hungry for this one.
Well, he's only 12 feet shy of first place right now.
We got a good landing. He's definitely on the brakes there, tail high attitude. This looks like it might be a really good attempt. I'm waiting for the official word from the judges, but that was a fantastic landing by Warren Groblar.
And he didn't have a lot of ground to make up on the landing because his takeoff was 8 feet shorter. So, I mean, let's be real, folks. We're talking about 12-foot differences there. And not quite enough. I've just seen the score pop in here on my software. Now Warren's only 6 feet behind Brandon Korn. So it is a shootout now.
Holy
One more
cow.
round for Warren to try to unseat Brandon out of first place.
I can't tell you how excited I am about these scores, Ryan. You've got a 6-foot spread between Warren Groblar and a Cessna 180 and a completely different aircraft platform in the Cessna 205 that Brandon Korn flies. This is amazing competition here today.
And the other thing I just want to reiterate is that all of these scores, if you look at the top 5 right now, Jeff Abrams even in 5th place with a combined score of 492. That's combined. That's a Piper Cherokee taking off and landing in a combined distance of less than 500 feet. I think a lot of us pilots who aren't STOL trained, like myself, like getting just one of those distances under 500 feet, landing or takeoff, is a challenge.
Very, very good point, Ryan. And that is something that I have to constantly remind myself as well, is that this is something special that we are seeing here today. And Brandon Corn having a little bit of a challenge, or excuse me, Ty Burlingham having a little bit of a challenge with his last takeoff, coming in at 200 feet almost at 197. You're starting to see the right wing. You've got a lot of physics going on here. Let me try to explain why time and time again you're seeing that right wing lift. There's a couple of things going on. Number one is going to be the crosswind coming from the right, but you're also seeing high performance engines and the torque and the P factor that's also torquing that airframe and twisting it to the left. There's all those things kind of working against you there, and that's why you're seeing so many of these aircraft, that right wing coming up.
Here comes Warren now. He can just smell it on this
Warren's
replay.
Takeoff, absolutely fantastic at 107 feet. That's a big improvement on his previous two takeoffs. And so if he can get a landing here, all he has to do is make up that 6 feet, and he's got it. No pressure, Warren.
Well,
no
he's
pressure
already, let's be real, he's already made up the 6 feet on the takeoff. Well, so he just needs to land like he's been landing. And
he's been so consistent on his landing. The first one at 125, then the next one at 127. The entire field is so tight. Right you are, Matt Peterson, online, one of our fellow competitors. And here comes Ty. Let's see if he can put in a really good landing here. His takeoff wasn't too good, but, you know, this is competition. And, oh, that's a pretty good one. That might be his best, actually, his best landing in this round.
The silence as we watch for the numbers to update. And you were absolutely correct, Corey. 156-foot landing for Ty Burlingham on that last landing. It's a shame it wasn't paired with one of his earlier takeoffs.
I know, it would have been fantastic for him, but that's how it works. You have to combine the scores from the same takeoff and landing, the same flight. It's not the best in the entire round. It's that same flight, and that's what counts. That was a little bit sporty. Kurt's pushing it a little bit hard.
You heard me go, ooh. So feel a little bit sporty there watching on the replay, kicking up the dirt, and it just felt like it wasn't quite under control, but he got the yoke back and got the tail down.
Well, you know, he landed with the brakes completely locked because you saw his tires just not move that entire rollout. So you can't even say his plane rolled out. He kind of skidded out, putting in a very respectable 128 foot to get him on the board on this round.
And pushing Ty Burlingham right out of third place.
Wow, that is absolutely the last opportunity. Now, here's Warren Grobelaar trying to come in for the win. That's a fantastic performance by Warren
Heavy on
Grobelaar.
the brakes, Warren.
Holy cow.
Waiting to see what the score was. Can he make up that 6 feet? The takeoff was exactly what he needed.
I honestly, if I was a bet man, I would bet on Warren Grobelaar taking the lead. He is always so consistent and putting in a 92-foot landing. Ladies and gentlemen, Warren Grobelaar taking the lead with a combined score of 199 feet.
He did it. Woo! That was incredible. Folks in the crowd, you can cheer for him. That was incredible. That was incredible.
Yeah, honestly, that was fantastic. Last minute, the very last opportunity to take the lead, and he did. Fantastic performance from our touring class here today. That was a very entertaining first round of competition.
Why don't we go to the unofficial results then for the Wayne America Fly-In National STOL Finals? In first place, Warren Grobelaar in that 180, bringing it home right at the end with 199. Brandon Korn bumped to silver, second place. He's got to be scratching his head saying, what? How did he do that? It looked like he was so safe. 251 in that giant Cessna 205. Kurt Leaders also clinching it in the last round after 2 scratches. That's a story to write home about with a combined score of 270. Ty, a little heartbreak for him, bumped down into 4th with 324. Tim in the 150 in 5th place with 354. And Jeff Abrams in that Piper Cherokee, buttering the bread in with 492. That's your unofficial results here at Wayne America for the touring class. Dude, Corey, I don't know how I'm even going to process the rest of the day if the touring class is already that exciting.
Oh my goodness. How close is it? We have a 50-foot, basically a spread between first and second, an even tighter spread between second and third. And Kurt Leaders, the story coming in at the last second with 2 scratches in his first couple of attempts, but putting down, throwing it all out there on that third landing, getting a little bit rowdy. Oh, that was fantastic. And Warren Groblar, one of the crowd favorites, takes another competition.
Wow, what an intense finals here at Wayne America for National STOL. It has been so intense. So many scratches, so many heartbreaks, so many upsets in the last final round. We cannot thank you enough. Thank you very much to all of you in the stands. Thank you very much to all of you viewing at home. And thank you very much to, you can see the credits rolling right here, the crew, the volunteers, everyone who makes this possible, including all of the sponsors that we've been talking about all day. Congratulations to the competitors. What an exciting time. Corey, I can't thank you enough for joining me on the mic this weekend. It's been an absolute pleasure. Where can people find you?
You can find me all over social media, but primarily on YouTube. My handle on social media is Fly Corey. Thank you so much for coming out. Take care of yourselves the rest of today and beyond.
Well, I can't wait for that, everybody. My name is Ryan Dombrowski. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. You can find me at Super Arrow on YouTube and Super Arrow Flight on Instagram. Would love to see you there. Come chat about STOL and everything that you love about aviation. Would love to keep the conversation going. We'll see you at the next STOL event coming up in just, I think in July, right? Minnesota? Minnesota's coming up. And then obviously Sodbusters just before Oshkosh. So it's going to be a wild and crazy season. The summer's just getting started. We'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.